The Senate of the Federal Republic has again delayed passage of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, opting to set up an ad hoc committee on the recommendations of its Electoral Committee. This has dashed the hopes of many Nigerians, hoping that the Senate will pass the bill this last Thursday for the amendments to be in place for the 2027 general election. Our Rice correspondent, Omo Bazwaye, tells us more.
For the second time in 1 week, the Nigerian Senate failed to pass the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. After every other matter on the other paper was stepped down to allow lawmakers deliberate on the report of his Electoral Committee, Senate on Thursday went into a closed-door session for more than 2 hours. When the doors reopened, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, announced the decision to set up an ad hoc committee to make greater input and properly compile the opinion of lawmakers regarding the Electoral Act Amendment Bill.
A closed session on the ongoing amendment to the Electoral Act 2022. The Senate has set up a small committee to further make contributions, galvanize, distill all the opinions of the civil senators and present them to us for final deliberation on Tuesday.
The high-powered committee, which is chaired by Senator Adeniyi Adigbonmire, who currently serves as Chairman Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters, is given the next 2 days to complete the assignment and revert to the Senate for further deliberation next Tuesday.
And has also included very ranking senators as members. The Distinguished Senator Adamu Alero, the Distinguished Senator Waziri Tamboa, the Distinguished Senator Adams Oshimole, the Distinguished Senator Mohamed Goje, the Distinguished Senator Tony Woye, the Distinguished Senator Taito Zam as members. The committee has 48 hours, or at most 3 days, when you wish to conclude its assignments and refer to the Senate before our next plenary.
Some of the amendments being proposed include a new subsection 3 on page 45 of the bill that seeks to check manipulation of results and ballot box snatching through electronic transmission of results from each polling unit to RF Portal in real time. Such electronic transmission shall be done simultaneously with the physical collation results. Section 22 of the proposed Electoral Act Amendment Bill seeks to increase the fine for offences of vote buying and selling from 500,000 naira to 5 million naira and a 10-year ban on perpetrators from eligibility to contest elections in Nigeria. Others include voting rights for inmates and a term of 2 years imprisonment for a person that financially and materially induces delegates for the purpose of influencing the outcome of conventions. Omo Bazwaye, Arise News.
Well, we require urgent review for us to have a fair, credible, and an election that will have integrity in 2027. In the case of the House of Reps, the House of Reps passed the bill in December. Now they've come around again in the month of January to say that, there are still certain sections in what they passed in December that would need to be further amended. Section 72, 52, and all of those sections, which will mean another delay. Now the matter before the Senate could not hold plenary because it was said that the chairman of the Committee on Electoral Matters was absent. That's Senator Dalong. They went into an executive session, and now that also failed. Now they have formed a 7-man ad hoc panel to submit report by Tuesday. That's a few days' time. Now, what do you think will happen on Tuesday? Perhaps they will set up another committee to look into the report of the 7-man ad hoc committee and the House of Reps. Meanwhile, we're getting closer to 2027. Are we faced here with another Buhari situation, which we had in 2018?
Well, it's likely to be worse this time. Clearly, from the conduct of both chambers of the National Assembly, it is very clear that the members simply want the status quo retained. This rigmarole is meant to give the impression to Nigerians that the proposed electoral act is being addressed. Whereas, while the National Assembly members were on holidays, there were three crucial issues that could really have abridged their holiday. From the look of things, the bill would be passed rather belatedly, would then be told under the law, as well as under the provisions of democracy and a protocol on democracy and good governance of ECOWAS. You cannot amend an electoral act 6 months to the election. From the look of things, it's been proposed that we should have this election in November this year, so that we're going to have 6 months to conclude election petitions, because the popular position, the democratic position of Nigerians is that it is better to conclude election petitions before the inauguration of the incoming government. With the way this and INEC, of course, under the law, is required to give 360 days notice of the election. With the way things are going, you can be very sure that the delay will be so dangerous that we may just be told we need to allow the status quo to remain. This is what this rigmarole is all about. So I think there are anti-democratic elements that are not prepared to allow any change in the status quo.
So you are saying affirmatively that the government, all the parties involved, will seem to be playing games with Nigerians.
No, it is very clear. Because, Dr. Abati, the two main issues that are not being addressed is in line with the decision of the Supreme Court. That whereas, the Supreme Court said, yes, INEC said they were going to transmit results. INEC said we're going to accredit voters by BVAS machine. But these are optional. Nigerians then have been demanding, put this in the law so that there will be no controversy surrounding our election. Last election, we're subjected to a national disgrace and shame when 3 leading presidential candidates were claiming to have won the election. The election petition didn't end until about 10 months after the election. Now, we now want those provisions amended so that it won't be optional. Why will it take 2 years to put that in the law?
Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. Our apologies for that slight technical glitch, and thank you, Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, for staying with us. Now, to continue the conversation, I'd like to ask you, I think sometime last year, around August, you warned that, people campaigning ahead of the election, that they were wrong. But if you look at the Electoral Act 2022, I think sections 94 and 95, it looks like within the purview of those two sections, if you are campaigning as a proxy, then it looks like that is not, an offense, under the law. However, the National Assembly is considering some other issues. What do you think of those other issues, namely provision of funds 1 year ahead, right of prisoners to vote in elections, use of lifetime, real-time electronic transmission of results, and all of those, penalties are prescribed for electoral offenders. How important are these? And why is it that people are campaigning and nobody is even talking about sections 94 and 95 of the Electoral Act 2022?
Dr. Abati, we operate in an atmosphere of reckless impunity. Now, again, while I'm saying that, the ongoing amendment exercise is time wasting. We have always had very steep penalties on purchase of votes, thuggery and the rest of them. But members of the political class, the ruling parties, have never set the engine in motion to arrest and deal with electoral offenders. As far back as 2008, the Ways Panel recommended the establishment of an electoral offences commission to arrest offenders and prosecute them. No regime, including regimes that campaign for electoral reforms, has ever thought of setting up that. Now, what is the big deal now? Oh, we want to increase campaign fund, and nobody has ever complied with that. We want to continue. For me, Dr. Abati, the only important political point in Nigeria today is the gale of defections. And nobody is talking of that. Even in the proposed amendment, whereas in the Second Republic, as a governor, if you decamped, if you want to contest, you have to resign from that party. Rimi did it in Kano. Mohammed Goni did it in Borno State. But today, you can abandon the party that elected you, embrace another political party, and then you behave as if nothing has happened. It's the same thing in the National Assembly. Whereas, in the case of Abegude and Labour Party, it was decided that unless your party is fractionalized down the line, you cannot decamp. But what is going on? Every week, the National Assembly, the president of the Senate is always happy to announce the new entrants into the ruling party. Oh, our number has increased now. It's not about quality. It's not about ideology. So, when you look at the proposed amendment, frankly speaking, apart from transmission of results, apart from electronic accreditation, and of course, that includes if you are contesting, if you want to vote, and the machine cannot find, machine has problem, network problem, you can use your ID card, NIN, and the rest of them. Those are the few changes. Election expenses already covered by law. Campaign already covered by law. Penalties for snatching ballot boxes and the rest already covered by law. Can we now have a decision? Can the political class now decide? During the next election, we are going to ensure that the provisions of the law are enforced. Other than that, there's no basis for the time-wasting exercise that is going on. And unless Nigerians are mobilized to pressure the National Assembly, I can assure you, the new Electoral Act will not be passed. The new Electoral Bill will not be passed into law. It's no indication.
Okay.
There's no indication. INEC is already saying time is against us. The way you are going. And nobody is saying, oh, can we give ourselves only 1 week to pass this bill, send it to the president, who has 30 days to either accept or reject some of the provisions? So they may come back. The bill may come back to the National Assembly.
Well, stakeholders in civil society,
just like 2019,
are also saying that the matter is very urgent if we're to have a better electoral process in 2027. Yes. But I would like to ask you two more questions, more or less, two more issues, basically by way of clarification. First, this allegation that there has been a military coup, the military denied it in October 2025. Now, by January 26, they have now admitted that there was a coup attempt. Now, 42 persons arrested, 16 persons have now been listed as persons to face trial. But you have argued, along with others, that this is not a matter of discipline under the Armed Forces Act. Rather, it's an assault on the sovereignty of the people and the constitutional order. And the right place to try these alleged coup plotters is in the Federal High Court, either at the federal or the state level. But this same High Court, the will of justice grants very slowly. They could be on the matter for the next 20 years. Why do you insist that this should be in the regular courts and not by way of court martial?
In the history of Nigeria, coup making or trial for treason or treasonable offenses has never been delayed, apart from the case of Femi Abiola, which was frustrated by the government by refusing to appoint enough members of the Supreme Court to address his appeal. But what is important here? It's not a matter of choice. If the court is slow, the government has the opportunities to fast-track trials in our country. The government can acquire gadgets for our courts, but generally, if and when the government wants a trial to be sped up, it has a way of ensuring that necessary gadgets, including recording gadgets, are provided for the court. In this instance, in 1992, we tried, 5 of us were charged for treasonable felony that we wanted to overthrow a military dictator, General Ibrahim Babangida. We didn't have access to our lawyer, so the late Shifa Wemi and I appeared for ourselves and our colleagues. And I can remember at this summit that Section 41 of the Criminal Code Act that provides for treasonable felon did not have a military dictator in mind, because the section says if you form an intention to remove the president of your country during his term of office other than by election, and I made it clear to the court, Babangida was not elected, so he can't be removed by election. 2, he has no fixed term of office, so that law did not have a dictator in mind. So that forced the military to amend, to go to the drawing table, and then enact the treason and other offenses decree number 29 of 1993. But that decree that allowed the dictators, military dictators, to set up a military tribunal to try coup plotters has been repealed by the Abdulsalami Abubakar junta to pave way for democratic governance in the country. Many other obnoxious decrees were repealed. Now, under the current democratic dispensation, it is only the Federal High Court that is empowered by virtue of Section 251, subsection 2 of the Constitution, to try treason, treasonable felony, and allied offenses. So that is the position of the law. It's not either or. It's not whether they can be taken to a tribunal or the regular court. They have to be taken to the Federal High Court. Yep.
Okay, I get your point, but I hope that the federal government has also been properly advised. They have an Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, and I want to assume that he knows enough law to know what the law says in this matter. Or do you have any doubts?
I'm very confident that will be done. But in the interim, since only 16 officers have been indicted, all the other detained people, including civilians who are not indicted, should be released without any further time wasting.
Well, fair enough. Now, another clarification before we begin to wrap up, and it has to do with the demolition of illegal structures in Lagos State, either in Iyanooro or Makuku or Owode Onirin and other places that have been mentioned in the literature. Now, there was a protest last week, and you went to the magistrate court in Yaba to say that these persons, are protesting within the purview of their rights, sections 39 and 40. Freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, and all of that. But there are no absolute rights. The state, Lagos State government, is saying that these are persons who are singing abusive songs to discredit the government of the day in Lagos and inciting people against constituted authority. These are persons who are involved in the disruption, in the violation, in the breach of the public peace. These are persons who have, obstructed traffic in Lagos, and that even if they have the right to protest, they do not have the right to breach public order. But you say, no, they have the right, and that what the government has done is wrong, and that even the demolition of illegal structures is unconstitutional and illegal. When it is clear in law that these state governments are responsible for urban renewal, although you quoted the NEWA Act and said that the state acted beyond its authority by intruding into inland waterways, waterfront in Lagos. Just by way of clarification, I raised this process.
Dr. Abachi, incidentally, I've been involved in the demolition of houses in Lagos for the past 35 years. I was involved in the case of Morocco. After the demolition, we cried out after the displacement of 300,000 people. The place that was said to be submerged was sandfilled, and the land was distributed to the rich. We got many of those who were displaced to take over the uncompleted buildings, that's Jakonde Estate in Abesan and Ikota, and they took over. We went to court that the government could not force them out, haven't turned them into squatters in the houses. The court made an order, if you want to eject them, go to court. And so we got them to be there. But right now, they are being ejected by the government. In the case of Oworonshoki, the Jakonde government, when there was responsible governance in our country, removed traders and mechanics from the heart of Lagos, Jankara area, and resettled them in Oworonshoki. It's about 24 hectares of land. What happened last year, in November last year, was that the governor of Lagos State surreptitiously gave the CFO on that land to Agbonyi, SCDA, whatever. And those who are affected have been protesting. In August this year, there was an attack on the community. 6 people were killed. Nobody in government in Lagos State or the police has even commiserated with the bereaved families. So they joined the protest. In the case of Makoko, they have a court order, Federal High Court, Justice Ogazi, not only stopped the Lagos State government, but awarded damages against the government. In the case of another Waterfront, Justice Onigbanjo gave a judgment in 2017 of the Lagos State High Court, and to defend that, if you want to eject, you must dialogue with those who are going to be affected. You must discuss, resettlement plans with them. And I can go on and on and on. Not less than 10 cases have been lost by the government in eviction cases, illegal demolition, illegal acquisition. Now, to top it all, the Supreme Court gave a decision last year, 2 years ago, that state government have no control over inland waterways in the country. So, going to any waterfront to demolish or displace people is illegal completely. So, this is the problem. Now, we are not opposed to development. What we are saying is that the Lagos State government, and by the way, Section 17 of the Constitution provides that all actions of the government shall be humane. So you can't go to a community in the dead of the night, tear gas them to wake them up and confuse them. And while they are running helter-skelter, you begin to demolish their properties. It's not part of our law. 2, our people are entitled to right to dignity. Our people are entitled to right to housing. If the government wants to demolish, no problem, but you must discuss and place them in some other place. It's so really there was a slum. It was developed by the late Ozumba Mbadiwe when he was a minister under the colonial regime in the 50s. And I've just mentioned the case of Jakonde, who also gave an alternative, place for those who were affected. With regards again to protests in Nigeria, again, by coincidence, I handled the case, which require Nigerians to obtain police permit before protest. And both the Federal Court and the Court of Appeal said, this relic of colonialism has to go. And it was so declared. And the Court of Appeal ordered the National Assembly to amend the law to allow Nigerians to protest. So, in 2020, Section 83(4), Subsection 4 of the Police Establishment Act provides that during protest, aggrieved Nigerians who want to protest will notify the police so that the police can provide adequate security. In this case, the organizers of the protest took a letter to the Commissioner of Police. He rejected the letter and had to call him. They have complied with the provision of the law. Whether you take the letter or not, the protest will go on tomorrow. The police came, of course. The Commissioner of Police led the police team. There was no disturbance on the street. They did not disturb the peace. It was in the National House of Assembly complex, while they were insisting that they wanted the governor to collect a letter from them, that the police became annoyed and said they were singing anti-government songs. Were they expecting them to be singing hallelujah or be praising the government? And by the way, Dr. Abati, you are a lawyer. You are familiar with the case of Bakari and Ishola, where it is said that vulgar abuse cannot attract a defamatory action. Secondly, and these guys must be familiar with our laws and the decision of our courts. In the case of Othon Nwankwo and the state, the Court of Appeal advised people in government, if you feel too irascible and you become so intolerant, please cover your ears with cotton wool. Because criticism is indispensable in a democratic society. So there was no breach of the peace. There was no basis to have tear gas. The peaceful protesters who took off from under the bridge in Ikeja and walked singing peacefully up to Alausa, and at the House of Assembly complex, they sat on the floor and demanded that the governor should address them. That is not a criminal offense under our law. So when we get to the bridge, we are going to cross it. If I have a right to protest, you cannot say I'm breaching the peace by singing on the way to Alausa. The police didn't stop them on the way. It was when they got to Alausa that somebody in the government said, these guys are disturbing us. And that was when the police tear gassed them in a very violent manner. Some of the injured are still in the hospital.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Femi Falana, for that clarification. And thank you for joining us on today's edition
of This Day
Live, the Sunday Talk Show.